Hey folks, and welcome to Build 2021. I'm sure you've been seeing tons of awesome demos, dev talks, and panel sessions. Today, I'm really excited because we're going to be talking all about the Snowflake SQL REST API and how you can build applications with it. My name is Daniel Myers, Developer Relations here at Snowflake, and I'm joined today with the one and only Ken Lane, Chief Evangelist of Postman and the host of the Breaking Changes podcast. Ken, how are you?
I'm doing very well today. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. So let's dive right in. So it's important to understand, before we even get into the Snowflake REST API, to understand just what is Snowflake. And at its core, Snowflake is the data cloud. What do I mean by that? I mean, it is logically a single global unified system that connects data together, right? No matter where it is geographically, no matter what format it's in, it could be structured, semi-structured JSON, or even unstructured data currently in preview. And it doesn't matter where it's located or anything like that. You should be able to analyze it, ingest it, take action on that data. And at the core, Snowflake is the platform that powers the data cloud. And so across this platform with Snowflake, right, we have and cover multiple different workloads, from data engineering, data warehousing, data science, data applications, which is what we're talking about today. And the cool thing with Snowflake is that it runs across all three major cloud providers. By that, I mean it actually utilizes that cloud provider's native technologies and services when running on it. So if you use AWS S3 to store files, to store your data, Snowflake can automatically ingest that data natively on S3. And it's connecting the data sources with the data consumers, right? So it doesn't matter where the data ultimately lives, whether it's log data, IoT data from a random device out in the field, even enterprise application logs or metrics, right? Snowflake can ingest it on the cloud provider that you're already running on, and makes it easy for you to actually get those analytics that you need. And so with Snowflake, you're able to independently and dynamically scale compute and storage separately. And that's a big deal, because it means that as your application that you're building grows, so can your data platform and data cloud along with it. So when we look at this platform is already proven by thousands of customers today. And you can see that a lot of them here. And so when we talk about building applications on Snowflake, this is a tried and true method that's worked for thousands of our customers already. And so when you are first beginning your journey to building an application with Snowflake, one of the first decisions and considerations that you have to go through is, what driver should you choose? And the nice thing about a SQL REST API is that it's kind of the agnostic layer across all of these languages. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, matter what language that you're developing in, because REST APIs work across them all. And with that, we also have native drivers that can improve and build upon the developer experience in that specific language, right? So you take Node.js, .NET, Python, or Go, right? All of these are first-party drivers that you can choose from and download these libraries directly from Snowflake when developing your application. And so even then, if you want to use a REST API, the good news is that Snowflake has this SQL REST API that allows you and enables you to directly query your Snowflake data over a REST interface, right? And we heard developer feedback, right? Many developers just 100% prefer, I want just the API itself. So we give you that ability. Also, with something like a REST API, what's cool about it is that you can build these custom REST applications. You can integrate your application and plugins in resource-constrained environments that that you might not have been able to before, right? You can integrate with these third-party applications and even migrate existing apps over to Snowflake. And so some of the core use cases that we've seen customers utilizing this API for is things like IoT devices, right? So an IoT device many times is going to be a very low power and low resource, a highly constrained device in terms of resources. So low compute and low storage. You need to have an interface that can work in that kind of environment. A SQL REST API is great for that. Another is really building custom client libraries, right? So I mentioned that we have several first-party drivers and libraries in Node, Go, and others. But what if you wanted a driver that in a language that we don't have today? The good news is this SQL REST API allows you and enables you to build that type of driver and interface in any language because it's the common denominator aspect across these interfaces. And then third is really building third-party plugin modules. So think of as a developer or as a business user, if you're using a platform, another platform to interact with your data alongside Snowflake, a lot of times these third-party platforms have their own plugin architecture and own plugin requirements, where REST is the method for interacting with third-party services like Snowflake, right? In these types of scenarios, really REST is the only way that you can add support in those environments. So now with this REST API, you can do exactly that. So let's kind of deep dive now into what's actually included and involved in this SQL API. So being that Snowflake lives and breathes in the cloud and at the same time lives and breathes data, right? We built and implemented this API with several things in mind. One is simplicity, right? So the entire API, what's beautiful about it is that it's only 3 different statements. And across all 3 different statements gives you the power to run any SQL statement that you want across a variety of different environments with Snowflake. So for example, those 3 different statements include today submitting a new one, submitting a new SQL statement, that is, retrieving the status and or the result of a previously submitted statement, or canceling a statement that you've already submitted as well, right? So across all of those 3, we provide the methods necessary to get that data into and out of Snowflake. So let's take a little deeper look at each of these. When we look at submitting a new statement in Snowflake, we have it's a post request that really has 3 query parameters. One is the request ID. What's important about this is that if you have a requirement that you do not submit that SQL statement twice, right? It could have some adverse effect on the data. For example, maybe it's a deletion and you're doing a query that deletes a certain kind of data, right? You want to make sure that you only execute that statement once. Well, so let's make sure that it's idempotent. So we supply a request ID that is optional, that if Snowflake sees that request ID a second time, it will not execute that statement for you. Second is the async parameter. What's interesting about this parameter is that it actually changes the behavior of Snowflake when it receives your statement. And that behavior, the difference is here, do you want the response that Snowflake gives to be to wait for the result of that statement to be executed and then return the results of that statement? Or do you want Snowflake to instantly respond saying, yes, I received your statement, but it has not fully executed yet, and here is its ID, so you can track it later, right? So that is the difference, and that's the purpose of the async parameter. The third parameter is page size. Page size is really only used when you are getting a synchronous result back. So the page size defines the number of rows in the result set of your submitted statement. And so when we now move forward and look at retrieving a statement, this is used really when you have set async to true, right? So meaning you have submitted a SQL statement to Snowflake, and Snowflake has responded to you saying, we received the statement, here is its ID, and then now you can use that ID, which is the statement handle, to fetch the results at a later time, right? So in this case, you might be polling at a certain interval until that statement has completed, waiting for the results to happen, right? And so this is useful when you might have a very large result set or a query that takes a long amount of time to execute. And so when you have these query parameters, you have the request ID, so you can still have it idempotent if needed. You can still set the page size as well, so you can get a specific number of rows, and you can specify which page that you want returned. So this way you can paginate your result set. If you have a SQL statement that results in millions of rows, right? You can page through those results as needed. Now, if you need to actually cancel a statement, you can do that as well, right? Utilizing that statement handle, that same statement handle from before, right? Say it's a SQL statement that you either no longer need the result set, or it's taking longer than expected, so you just go ahead and kill it. Either way, you can specify that statement handle, and Snowflake will cancel that running statement for you. So when we look at these across the board, it's interesting to see how can you get started today with this API. Well, so we have a few different ways that you can do that. One, we have a SQL API playground, which is powered by the Postman platform. And we also specify both the Postman collection that we have and the Open API spec. So with these, you can actually generate clients in over 30 different languages and frameworks right off the bat, which is pretty awesome. And you can actually check out the Postman collection and the Open API spec at developers.snowflake.com. Now, from here, I want to pass it over to Ken to more talk about the Postman platform and how you can use it today with the Snowflake SQL REST API to build some apps. Ken?
Thank you, Daniel. Good stuff. I mean, I'm an old database guy, and this warms my heart because I'm all about the API and the type of access that it provides. So Snowflake is right up my alley when it comes to what I need. So let's kind of just start where you left off and talk about how Postman augments and complements Snowflake in this way. So where you want to start with engaging with Snowflake is they have their own team, they have their own workspace, this entire sandbox environment that Daniel talked about. So you can go to explore.postman.com, but this is available from developer.snowflake.com. So you can get to it either direction, and you can browse and search for other APIs there as well. But Snowflake has all of their collection and their open API published here for you to get access to. And so you're able to get at their collection and engage with it. You can leave comments on it, but you can also fork and watch their open API and their collection. So if they make any changes to it, if they add any parameters or do anything, you're going to get notified of those changes. And you can fork that collection and use that to get started doing different things. And that's really what I want to show you today. So I'm more about getting out of the slide deck here and actually jumping into Postman to show you how you can work with Snowflake in this way using their collection. So you've come from developer. You're going to land right on their workspace. But if you're just in your Postman, like I am on my homepage here, and I want to find, if you can type correctly, if you want to find the Snowflake API, so you have Snowflake SQL API, Snowflake you see is the user here, is the team. You can see I've been playing with it. So I've got a couple workspaces already set up, but I'm going to go directly to their workspace. This is where you would land if you come from developer .snowflake. You would land on you have a workspace here with the Snowflake collection, and you have those 3 API calls that Daniel talked about right here. So you have those collections available. You have the details of that collection. So you're able, those parameters he talked about. You have the body that where you can submit your statements, and you can hit send on this. But in order to do that, you're gonna have to create a fork of their collection. And so how you can do this is, I actually think I deleted my workspace. So I'm going to create a new workspace. And I'm gonna call this, because I'm gonna work with some of my the music portion of my store. So this is, I'm gonna call this Snowflake Music, because I'm gonna pull and work with, you know, musical instruments, and do some automation and manage this subset of data, or this domain of data that I have in a Snowflake database. So I have this workspace, and once it creates the workspace here, will be dropped into it. And this is why I wanted to show you the search, is because now I have an empty workspace. This is for me. This isn't Snowflake's workspace. This is just me working with the Snowflake API. And I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna look for them. There's the Snowflake one. I'm gonna jump back real quick. And this just kind of shows you how to move around between your workspaces, and you can have personal workspaces. You can have private team ones that are just with your team. But the important part is I can take Snowflake's collection and I can fork it right here. So I can say, you know, this is going to be my music demo, and I want this in my Snowflake music workspace. And I want to watch it too. So if they make any changes to their collection, I want to be able to pull those changes into my collection. So I'm going to go ahead and fork it. And then what it's going to do is it's actually going to fork it in a GitHub sense, but it's going to fork it back to that repo or that workspace that I designated. So just to kind of show, I hit overview. I'm in my personal workspace. This isn't the Snowflake one, but I have the Snowflake API collection here. So this is my copy, my personal copy of their collection. And now I've got a send button. I can actually hit send on this. I can actually put in my credentials and authenticate with Snowflake and be able to do work with my actual database. But just for demo purposes and to show off some more capabilities, I'm gonna just mock this collection actually real quick. I'm gonna hit mock, and I'm gonna call this Snowflake Music. And I'm gonna create a mock server and grab this URL. And when I go back to my collection here, once you click on the collection, you'll see there's a variable tab. This has the Snowflake API in it. So if I can get my screen to pay attention, zoom in a little bit, you'll see you have the Snowflake API here. I'm going to replace this temporarily with my mock. And then what this is going to do is this allows me to actually make calls and see, whoops, oh, it's going to work. There it goes. Oh, come on. Why are you not working? Is my base URL correct? Yes. Don't make me look silly. And I did the mock just so I would look good. Let me see. Why is it not working? Let me go look at my mock server, see if it's taking calls. So it's taken 3 calls. Why is it not working? That's a little odd. 4 or 5 method not allowed. Let me change my statement. So here's my SQL statement. I'm going to add select star from products where type equals music, or let's actually get a little more precise. I'm going to look for guitars. And I'm still getting a 405 method not allowed on my mock server. Why is that? Well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to keep plowing forward. The live coding gods are not in my favor, but I can still get the point across of what I would like to do here is I have that submit a SQL statement query here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to guitars. And this keeps the same collection, the same statement. But it's going to make, it has this actual SQL statement embedded in here. Now, if I want to make another one, I can just duplicate this. Whoops. And I've got guitars copy. Let's call this one drums. And I'm going to quickly go in here to the SQL, and I'm going to call this drums. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this folder. I'm going to call this music, because all I'm going to do in this one is I'm going to generate queries that I'm going to use elsewhere. So I actually don't need my other two requests in here. What I'm going to do is just clean up the ability to cancel. I'm going to make these synchronous requests, so I don't care about making that second call. And I'm going to call this music. But say if I wanted to then duplicate this folder, and say I wanted to do sports, say I got lots of different commerce, I can redo this one to basketball, go into my query statement here, and change where product type equals basketball. And then let's go ahead and change this one. We're going to look for baseball and change the query statement to be baseball. So what I've done is taken the requests from that, forking the collection from Snowflake. I've got two folders, but really it's this exact same API request being made, but I've altered the query that I'm passing in. Now the goal here is this is something anyone can come in. I don't have to be a programmer to come in and run these and get these results from here. Now, what you do with the results, you can return them as JSON. You can get them as JSON. You can also visualize. So you can use what's called test scripts to write scripts and visualize that response. If you want to make it so someone doesn't have to read the JSON, you can actually show it in an HTML format or using charts and graphs. But also you can test this result. So I can come in here and I can apply many different test results. So right here, I'm going to actually look for a 422, because that's what I'm looking for. And when I run this, it'll show my test results right here, as that's what I got, the right status code. I can also look in the body for specific results, a certain number of guitars, a certain number of basketball related items. I can write tests against each of these queries to make sure I get what I'm looking for with guitars, drums, basketballs, and baseballs. Now I can either share this collection with other team members via a workspace. I can share it to that workspace and they can access it there. I can set permissions so they can't change things. They can only run it and see the results. And then I can also publish it using a run in Postman button if I want to publish it for anybody to download and run on their own. And then because of Postman, I can also monitor this collection. So if I wanted to run this collection on a schedule, say every hour, every minute, every week, I can set that schedule. I can run it from different regions, and those test results will be run each time. Now, what you do with those test results is up to you. There's a lot of possibilities there. But what I really wanted to get across is you can take the Snowflake collection as it is, and you can turn it into meaningful collections that reflect different lines of business, helps you organize, and you can bring in non-developers to do this. There was no code related there. If you add a little visualization, or you're just wanting them to run this, they can run these and they can download the results, save it to a file, say they have some other job they need to do with it, they can save the results. So it's a really kind of a low code, no code way of getting people access to different parts of your database. And so that's really what I wanted to get across from how you can take the collection that exists in their workspace, and you can fork it, you can add your own query layer to it, and organize in the ways that you see fit. And just by changing the query, obviously there's all those other parameters in there you can do stuff with, but the ability to organize it, change your queries, make it more reflect your business landscape, and then automate and use tests to validate certain outcomes, across your business landscape, and enable. We see customers in retail enable analyst teams, enable sales teams with these types of collections. And one retail company we work with, they have a team dedicated to just building these types of collections, building the queries, and then handing them off to non-developer groups to be able to do stuff, as well as automate and make sure certain business outcomes, certain queries work, certain number of coupons are available at a certain time, loyalty points, different business outcomes are actually happening, and you can schedule and you can monitor those. And so that's just one tiny slice of what you can do with those collections when it comes to Postman. You can integrate those with CI/CD systems. You can use it across cloud platforms. You can integrate it with APM, so Datadog, New Relic, if you need that data, and you can pipe collections, the results of the collection runs into Datadog or New Relic. And really, you can sync things with GitHub. So it's not just the pipeline, you can sync the results and the collections themselves to GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket using your source control. And then once you're kind of automating with Postman, there's a number of other things you can do to automate, schedule, and make things happen. And so that really just kind of gives you one look at how you can take the Snowflake collections that they've provided and go that next mile that's a little bit more tangible and visible to your business. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Daniel.
So yeah, that's pretty awesome stuff, Ken. It's really powerful to see the kinds of applications that you can build and you can do things combined with Snowflake and Postman. So awesome stuff. And one of the things that always pops up with folks is kind of, where do we go from here, right? What are the next steps? And for everybody here watching today, I would say there's several next steps here that you can do. One is check out developers.snowflake.com. From there, you'll actually get direct links to our Postman collection and Postman workspace on the Postman website. You'll also get access to a whole lot of other videos, tutorials, and downloadable resources for building applications with Snowflake. And then we also have an end-to-end guide on quickstarts.snowflake.com that really covers how to build applications specifically with this new SQL REST API from Snowflake. And so those are a few key points that I want to really drive home today as key takeaways for this talk here. And so with that, I want to say thank you. My name is Daniel Myers, Developer Relations here at Snowflake, and this has been another awesome session here at Build 2021. Thanks.